I was a TV weatherman for more than 40 years. I talked about floods and storms and tornadoes and blizzards and ice storms and all kinds of things. And when I wasn't talking about that, I was talking about what you could see in the sky. Things like eclipses, meteor showers, various planets, and so on. But I'm not the weatherman anymore. But I still have a lot to talk about. Well, hi everybody, and once again, thank you for joining us for the Hey Kevin Show, this third episode of the Hey Kevin experiment that we're doing. I want to thank everybody for reaching out and their nice comments that I've seen on Facebook and YouTube and all over the place. Want to say hello to Mike Price, Doug Pringle, who sent in a really nice note. And Doug, I've known you for years and years and years, and so thank you for the very nice things you said. Bob and James and Bill and Marlene and Kay, thank you for the very nice comments. Jeffrey Crowder, Chris Land, who wrote in and said, Kevin, you need a haircut. What would your grandma Pottinger say about that hair of yours? You know, you talk about her all the time and how much you loved her, how much of an influence she was on your life. What would your grandma Pottinger say about your hair? Well, she'd probably want to know what colored dress I'm planning to wear, frankly. But that was grandma, and I loved her dearly. And one of these days I'll clean up. I'm an old hippie. So we'll see how that works out. So Nita asked about thunderstorms. Why do we have so many thunderstorms this year? You know, they've come and gone. We've had a bunch of storms, then no storms, then a bunch of storms, then no storms. And so, Nita, it's just the way things have worked out this year, the way weather patterns have gone. There's no specific reason for that happening. But there is something going on. And Brian Wright wrote in, and he asked about the dew points. And so let's consider this as a Hey Kevin. So Brian Wright asks, Hey Kevin, the dew points have been so high this year. You know, I have asthma, I have trouble breathing. What's going on? It's just really, really uncomfortable. I've had it. Well, Brian, a lot of people have. And here's the reason. Here's what's going on. We've had a lot of high pressure this year, this summer season. And think of it as a crock pot. High pressure tends to hold the atmosphere down. And so when you get moisture coming in here at the surface of the earth and the high pressure is pushing down, it just traps all of that moisture. And not only that, it traps the moisture, but also all the dirt and dust and pollen, all those other things that are floating around in the air. So yeah, Brian, it has been more uncomfortable this year. And one of the reasons the dew points have been so high is, well, of course, we talked about the corn on the last episode and the corn scatteous air and the fact that corn puts all that moisture in the air. Not only that, but it's summertime, it's humid, and that's the reason it's been so humid this year. It's just a combination of high pressure and a good flow of moisture, especially up from the south and those pesky cornfields. So I hope that answers your question, Brian, and thank you. Brian Wright wanted to know all about the humidity and why it was so humid this year and so on. Well, that leads us to today's weather word. I think it's appropriate. Swollecking. Swollecking. That's today's weather word. Swollecking is hot and humid weather. So you step outside and you're going to experience this here over the next few weeks. Swollecking weather. That means it's hot and humid. Speaking of weather, let's do the weather quiz for today. You know, the atmosphere, think of it like a parfait dessert. It's layered. There are layers of the atmosphere, one on top of the other. But how many layers are in Earth's atmosphere? How many layers in Earth's atmosphere? Is it 3? Is it 5? Or is it 7? Go. Did you guess 5? 5 is correct. And they are the troposphere, That's the lowest one, the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the thermosphere, and the exosphere. Those are the five layers of the atmosphere, and I hope you got the weather quiz right. Oh, by the way, all of the weather that we experience happens in the lowest layer of the atmosphere, and that is the troposphere. It's story time. I'm going to tell you something here that may actually come as a shock to you, pun intended. Right now, all around you, there's electricity in the air. Now, by some estimates, as much as 100 to 200 volts of electricity around us right now. You don't feel it, but it's all around us. And so you might ask yourself, why can't we just go out and stick up some wires in the air and gather the electricity that way? Richard Feynman, the famous physicist who worked on the Manhattan Project and so on, a brilliant guy, a great writer. He's passed away, but he talked about the electricity in the atmosphere and about how the Earth has a negative charge. And the atmosphere has a positive charge. And normally, the air is pretty much balanced out. So you really don't feel this electricity all around you. There might be a little exchange from the top of your head to the air, but it's so small you just can't feel it. In the wintertime, you might feel it a little bit. But for the most part, the electricity in the air, you just can't feel. But it's there. Interestingly, and this is a story for a whole nother time. But interestingly, the ancient Egyptians and Tesla may have understood the fact that there's electricity in the air and it can be harnessed and used. But again, that's a whole other story. But if you want to check it out, just check out about the pyramids and how they might have been electrical features and how Nikola Tesla also understood that and tried to harness free electricity out of the atmosphere. But then, well, other factors came in, including big business, and we're still plugging things into the walls. At any rate, Richard Feynman goes on to explain that one of the ways that the Earth keeps an electrical balance is by lightning. So every once in a while, often actually, the Earth and atmosphere balance will be balanced out by lightning. All the time, there are lightning storms going on the planet, and so that helps balance things out. But sometimes we can experience lightning around here. You know that. And there are some very strange forms of lightning. Usually we see lightning just streaking across the sky, but sometimes there are odd forms of lightning. And I'm going to talk to you about one that some scientists say doesn't even exist at all. Some scientists say this form of lightning does not exist. But I disagree because I've seen it, and I've seen it myself. I'm going to tell you this. I was about 11 years old, and I grew up in the country, and across the road, there were the neighbors. And for some reason, the neighbor girl, she was a little older than I was. She and I were sitting on a picnic table, on top of a picnic table. It had been storming that day. It was a kind of a muggy day, and the air was heavy and so on. Why we were sitting outside where there were still storms in the air, I don't know, but we were. And all of a sudden, we were sitting there. All of a sudden, this fiery, round ball of sparkling light bounced on the top of the house where we were sitting at the picnic table here. The house was here. It bounced off the roof of the house. It went down, bounced on the ground, went like this, and it made this sound. It goes like that. That's the best way I could describe it. And it was about the size of a soccer ball. It was yellow and sparking all out and so on. And it went across the ground and it disappeared. Ball lightning. People say it doesn't exist. I'm here to tell you it does because I've seen it. But scientists say it may not exist because they can't reproduce it. They can't capture it. They don't know when it's going to happen and so on. But it does happen. Some people believe, some scientists believe, it's just a ball of plasma, electrically charged plasma that's flying through the air and so on. There have been stories about ball lightning developing on airplanes and going down the aisle of an airplane, rolling along. Ball lightning doesn't usually harm anybody. I've never heard of any stories about it doing that. It just scares the you know what out of everybody. So, at any rate, that's my story about ball lightning, a very strange form of lightning. But keep in mind, whether it's strange or just the regular lightning you see in the sky, it's all part of Earth's balance of electricity between the Earth and the atmosphere. But I'm telling you, folks, I've never seen anything as crazy as that one lightning, ball lightning I saw one afternoon in Peru, Indiana, in the country, all the way back in 1966.
Your car isn't just transportation, it's your first impression. At Deluxe Detailing, we make sure it's a great one. From deep interior cleaning to showroom shine exteriors, we bring the sparkle back to your ride. Fast, flawless, because every detail matters. Deluxe Detailing, where your car gets the VIP treatment it deserves.
I mentioned my grandma Pottinger. I talk about her a lot um, because she was a real important part of my life when I became interested in weather. And I was just a little kid, and I'd go out and visit her in Deedsville, Indiana. And to this day, and this time of year, I think about it. I saw an advertisement um, for green beans, and I saw a little market, along the side of the road, green beans for this and that. It just brought back a flashback of something that just, for me, because I can't tell you how many hours it seems that as a kid, I sat and snapped green beans. Did you ever do that? You ever just take the green beans and you snap them, okay? And you take the end off and you put it in a paper bag and so on. And I did that for, oh, I don't know how long. And shelling peas too, doing that. All of that up at grandma's house. And so I don't know. I just great times. My grandmother, by the way, always, and maybe your grandma did too. She always had those little windmill cookies, yeah, and they tasted like they had a little almonds in them, I think, or some kind of nut. Just grandma's house. It was fun. But my grandmother was very important with my early introduction to weather and weather forecasting, but not because of her. She didn't have a weather station or anything like that. She didn't have a television. I don't think she listened to the radio. I know she didn't read much. So she always seemed to know what the weather was going to be. I can remember my grandma saying things like, well, there's enough blue in the sky to patch a Dutchman's britches. It's not going to rain. And it probably wouldn't. My grandma always seemed to know what the weather was going to be. And I thought that was fascinating. She had these stories, she had these sayings. See, she was like all those people who were born in the late 1800s, and they didn't have technology to depend on to tell them what the weather is going to be. They had to rely on what was around them, the voice of nature, the sounds of nature, those kinds of things. And so grandma just passed along these old sayings that she heard from her parents and probably their parents and so on. And so here are some that you might put into practice when you're thinking about rain as we look at weather lore and the possibility of rain thanks to my grandma. When flowers are exceptionally fragrant, expect rain. When dry springs begin to bubble, it will rain. When the flies swarm and bite, rain is in sight. My grandma loved those little poems. If the salt is sticky and gains in weight, it will probably rain. Here, I love this one. Leaves showing their underside. A stormy day does betide. So what that means is, especially maple trees, silver maples. You look at the silver maple tree, and you see the leaves, and they're turned over like that, and you see the silvery underside of the maple leaf. Well, a lot of times when you see that, that tells you that air is moving up into the atmosphere on a hot, humid day. When you see that, air rising could turn into clouds, could turn into storms, and then rain. So that is a sign of the leaf turning over that there is rain on the way. Well, it's another one. Oh, here's a good one. Stars twinkle more before rain. Did you know that? Stars twinkle before rain. They twinkle more before rain. And here's something else too. And I don't have time to talk about it right now, but stars twinkle and planets don't. There you go. Stars twinkle and planets dote. When the moon's outline is not clear, rain is drawing near. If horses and dogs sniff the air, a summer shower will soon be there. And here's one: smoke from a fire sinks to the ground before a rain. I wrote that down because Grandma said that. And here's one she liked too: dapple sky, more wet than dry. So, what this tells us, the things that my grandmother told me, she was no great, brilliant scientist or anything, but she knew what to look for in nature to tell us what the weather is going to be. And that's where weather lore comes in. And that was my first introduction to weather forecasting. And to this very day, I still will look outside and try to look and see whether it be the direction of the wind, how the clouds look, the smell of the air. All those kinds of things tell us what the weather is going to be doing. And my grandma had a lot to do with my appreciation of looking at nature and telling what the weather is going to be. Now it's time to talk about what's in the sky, or in this case, what you can't see in the sky, because on the nights of August 22nd and 23rd, we'll have a rare black moon. A black moon. Now, let me tell you about that. Typically during a season, by a season, I mean fall or winter or spring or summer or whatever. Each season typically has three new moons. Sometimes during a season, there are four new moons. And this summer season, there are four new moons. That's very unusual. So on the nights of August 22nd and 23rd, there is a new moon. It is the third new moon in a season where we have four. It's kind of unusual. It's called a black moon because you can't see the moon. So they had to give it a name. It's a very special moon. It's called a black moon. In fact, this is so special that the black moon of August 22nd and 23rd will not happen again for another 33 years. How about that? Over my shoulder here is this picture of George Washington praying. This is, I think, just before Valley Forge. Isn't that right, Devin? Just before Valley Forge? Okay. So George Washington is praying. But I want to point out something, that it was on August the 30th, since this is, we're releasing this around the middle of August. It was on August the 30th in 1776 that George Washington's troops had been defeated by the British on Long Island. So there was this horrible defeat of George Washington and his troops. So the British had him socked in, and then it got foggy. So on the night of August 30th, 1776, it was so foggy that George Washington was able to sneak his troops away from the clutches of the British. The British didn't know what happened. They woke up, the Patriots were gone. And that is another example of how weather has affected war with George Washington and the troops in 1776. I mentioned the fact that we have electricity floating around in the atmosphere all the time, and how the ancient Egyptians and Nikola Tesla might have been onto something in the ability to harness this electricity that's in the air, free electricity, harnessing it, and then powering our lights and our appliances and so on. But we don't do that. So, what do you think about that? Do you think it's possible that we could harness electricity out of the atmosphere? What's going on with that? If it's possible, why aren't we doing it? I'd like to know what you think about that. It's curious, don't you think? Well, folks, that just about does it again for another episode of Hey Kevin. Oh, by the way, somebody asked me about this Volkswagen here. Said, are you a Volkswagen guy? The answer is yes. I used to own a Volkswagen convertible. I don't anymore, but I've got a little bug in my garage. I drive it sometimes. So thanks for asking. And also, some people are asking, Carol Kelly was one, and there was somebody else. Carol Kelly commented, said, Kevin, you talk a lot, but you don't say anything. Carol, that's the let's talk about what we can do here in the future. One of the things that we can do is let you become involved. I would love to hear your comments. I would love to have your input about what you want to hear me talk about, what you want to do, questions, those kinds of things. Hey, Kevin, and so on. And another thing we want to do is the possibility of viewer support. If you'd like to see more of this, if you'd like to see Hey Kevin continue, well, all you have to do is contact dreamerpro.org. Is that right, Devin? Dreamerpro.org. And they'll let you know about the possibility of becoming a partner here in the Hey Kevin Show. In the meantime, folks, I hope you have a wonderful time. I hope life is treating you well. And remember that the weather is always around us, and whether or not, we'll have weather.